All right, today we're going to talk about a technology that's, well, it's kind of like having X-ray vision for data. It helps us find these hidden patterns in, everything from your friend group all the way up to the global economy. It's really about a huge shift in perspective, seeing the world not just as a bunch of separate things, but as this massive interconnected network.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. A bit of a riddle, actually. What could your friends, a sophisticated fraud ring, and a massive supply chain possibly have in common? I know, it sounds like a weird setup for a joke, but trust me, the answer is, well, it's actually pretty simple, and it's the key to everything we're talking about today.
The answer? They are all networks. And honestly, in a world where we're just drowning in data, the real superpower isn't just having all that information. No way! It's about seeing the connections between all those little pieces of data. That's the game changer.
All right, so let's jump right into this world of connections. We're going to see why looking at things this way is just so important.
Think about your classic spreadsheet. It's great, right? Super organized, everything in neat rows and columns. But here's the problem. It's terrible at showing the relationships. Things like who knows who, or which sale happened because of another one, or how all these different parts of a system actually talk to each other. All that crucial context, it just gets lost. It's like we're staring at a list of trees and completely missing the fact that we're in a giant forest.
So how do we actually see that forest? What's the tool for the job? Well, that brings us to our next topic. What exactly is graph analytics?
And this visual really says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you have the old way, just a list, a bunch of isolated data points. But on the other side, you see the new way, a network, a whole connected system. We're not just looking at single items anymore, we're analyzing the web of relationships between them. That right there, that's the whole point of graph analytics.
Okay, so if we're going to put a definition on it, graph analytics is basically a bunch of special techniques we use to study data when it's set up as a graph. And a graph sounds complicated, but it's really just made of two simple things. Nodes, those are the individual items, and edges, which are just the lines connecting them. The whole goal is to find the interesting, meaningful patterns hidden in that web.
Let's break that down even further. Think of it like Legos. You've only got two types of pieces. First, you have your nodes. These are the objects, the things themselves. People, products, places, whatever you're looking at. Then you have the edges. These are simply the relationships that connect those nodes. Could be a friendship, a financial transaction, a flight path between two cities. It doesn't matter. Every single network, no matter how ridiculously complex it looks, is just built from these two simple ideas, nodes and edges. That's it.
Okay. So we've got our building blocks. Now for the fun part. How do we actually use this whole nodes and edges thing to uncover a network's secrets?
Let's make this real. Think about any social network, like LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. Who's the most important person in that network? Now, that sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it totally depends on what you mean by important.
And this is where this idea of centrality becomes super useful. For instance, degree centrality is basically a popularity contest. Who has the most direct friends? Then you have betweenness centrality. These are the connectors, the people who act as a bridge between different friend groups, super important. And finally, closeness centrality helps us find the people who can get a message out to everyone else the fastest. So you see, each one of these tells you a totally different story about who has influence and why.
Another really cool technique is something called community detection. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically an algorithm that automatically finds all the natural little groups, the cliques, that exist inside a giant network. Think about what that means for a business. You could spot different groups of customers who behave in similar ways, all without ever having to survey them or guess. Okay, this is all great in theory, but where does the rubber meet the road? How is this stuff actually being used in the real world to solve big problems? Let's take a look.
The applications are everywhere. In finance, it's a beast for spotting fraud rings by connecting accounts that look totally separate on the surface. For online shopping, it's the magic behind those "you might also like" recommendations. In logistics, it's used to untangle and optimize these insanely complex supply chains. And of course, in social media, it's how we figure out who the real influencers are and how ideas go viral.
Let's zoom in on just one of these to see how it works. We'll look at something called path analysis. If you've ever used Google Maps or Waze, you've used path analysis. It's the logic that finds you the fastest way to get from A to B, whether that's in your car or, say, through the entire French train system.
And the process is actually surprisingly simple when you break it down. First step, you map out the network. Every train station is a node, and the routes between them are the edges. Simple enough. Step 2, you add some data. You weigh the edges with information, like the average travel time for that route. And step 3, you let an algorithm do the heavy lifting to find the absolute quickest path from where you are to where you want to go. It takes this messy, complex map and just spits out the perfect answer. It's brilliant.
And finding that perfect answer, that brings us to the real payoff here. The whole point is to use this incredible understanding of the network to get a massive advantage when it comes to making decisions.
So if there's one thing you remember from all of this, let it be this. Regular data analysis gives you information, but graph analytics, it gives you context. And when you have context, when you can see the whole system, that's when you can finally start making truly smart decisions.
This really gets to the heart of it. By modeling complex systems and revealing hidden patterns, Graph Analytics provides the actionable insights needed for a true decision intelligence framework. In other words, it lets us make choices based on the whole picture, the full network, not just a few random dots on a spreadsheet.
And when you can do that, the advantages are just huge. You can make way better predictions about the future. You can optimize your business processes to be incredibly efficient. You can put your resources exactly where they need to go. And maybe most importantly, you can adapt your decisions on the fly as the world changes around you.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought. Everything in our world, from our own friendships to the entire global economy, is built on relationships. It's all one giant interconnected web. Graph Analytics gives us the tools, this incredible new lens, to finally see that web clearly. So the real question is, are you looking?